Some people ruin the sweetest souls. They push and push, testing boundaries, taking kindness for weakness, and then when the sweetness turns bitter, when the heart finally speaks up, they call it crazy, toxic. They point fingers, forgetting they lit the fire themselves. But here's the truth. Every reaction has a root, every flame is spot. You can't blame someone for defending what's left of themselves, for refusing to be disrespected anymore. Sometimes breaking is how they survive. Sometimes breaking is how they rebuild. Because let's be real, no one walks through fire and comes out unchanged. No one gets pushed to their limits and stays the same. When a kind soul finally snaps, when they rise from the ashes with sharper edges and a spine made of steel, people act shocked. They whisper, "You've changed." Damn right they've changed. Kindness is a beautiful thing, but it is not a permission slip for mistreatment. It is not an open invitation to be used like a doormat with a welcome sign taped to their back. Too many people confuse patience with passivity, thinking they can take and take, drain and drain, until that once-giving soul is left gasping for air. But the thing about people who have been drained dry, they learn. Oh, they learn. They learn that self-respect is louder than blind loyalty. They learn that saying no is a full sentence, a battle cry, a declaration of independence. They learn that the ones who truly care will never demand their silence, their suffering, or their submission. And when they finally draw the line, when they turn around and refuse to be the endless well of patience they once were, people don't like it. Suddenly the narrative shifts. They're so different now. They've become selfish. They used to be so sweet. No, they used to be convenient. They used to be the easy yes, the quiet forgiver, the one who bent over backward just to keep the peace while everyone else lit matches around them. But that's the thing about fires. Eventually, they stop warming and start burning. And when a person who has been burned one too many times finally decides to stop apologizing for their survival, when they turn their pain into power, instead of letting it eat them alive, the world doesn't know what to do with them. But here's what they need to know. Let them talk. Let them complain. Let them spin stories and paint you as the villain in their tiny, self-serving versions of reality. Let them be uncomfortable with the new you, the you that doesn't tolerate the bare minimum, the you that walks away from what doesn't serve them, the you that no longer bends to fit into spaces too small for their worth. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly love you won't be afraid of your growth. They won't punish you for protecting your peace. They won't try to shove you back into the smaller, more convenient version of yourself that they once benefited from. And if they do, if they turn cold, if they resent your strength, if they act like your self-respect is an inconvenience, then you've just found another fire you're better off walking away from. So let them call you crazy. Let them label you difficult, unkind, bitter, whatever helps them sleep at night. Because while they're busy pointing fingers, you're out here reclaiming your power, setting boundaries, and refusing to be anything less than the force of nature you were meant to be. And that's the kind of fire that doesn't just burn, it lights the way. So let them talk. Let them choke on their own narratives, twisting and turning the story to make themselves the innocent bystanders and you the storm they never saw coming. Let them paint you as the villain in a tale where they conveniently forget they were the ones who set the stage for the explosion. Because the truth is, people love the version of you that serves them. But the moment you stop bending, the moment you stop making yourself small to fit into their expectations, suddenly you're too much. Too much? No, you're just no longer available for less. See, there comes a time in everyone's life when they realize that peace isn't found in being agreeable, in swallowing words to keep the air clear, in softening edges just to be digestible. Peace isn't in playing nice while people walk all over you with dirty feet and then act offended when you ask them to wipe them at the door. Peace isn't in martyrdom. Peace is in knowing your worth and refusing to negotiate it. Because here's the thing, if your boundaries upset them, it's because they benefited from you having none. If your self-respect offends them, it's because they were counting on you having none. And if your decision to prioritize your own well-being makes them uncomfortable, then let them sit in that discomfort. Growth is a personal responsibility, and you are not responsible for their unwillingness to level up. You are done making yourself a character in someone else's play, standing on a stage where you're only valued when you're silent, obedient, easy. You are done handing out kindness like candy to people who only show up when they have empty pockets and expect you to keep pouring. You are done being the healer for those who never once thought to check if you were bleeding, because at some point, the kind-hearted have to stop setting themselves on fire to keep others warm. And here's where it gets interesting. When you finally stop, when you step back, when you say, no more, the world doesn't quite know what to do with you. The ones who only loved you when you were useful suddenly start calling you cold. The ones who were comfortable with your compliance now call you selfish. They whisper about how you've changed, but the truth is, you just finally started showing up for yourself. And that is the most powerful transformation of all. Because the thing about reclaiming your power is that it doesn't just change the way you move, it changes the way the world reacts to you. It forces people to either rise to meet you or step aside, and those who were only there for the version of you that served them will always choose the latter. Let them. Let them remove themselves. Let them walk away in confusion, in frustration, in disbelief that you are no longer bending to fit into spaces too small for your spirit. Let them clutch their pearls at the idea that you are no longer a puppet in their carefully curated world, because you are no longer available for relationships that require you to abandon yourself. You are no longer interested in keeping the peace at the expense of your own well-being. You are no longer dimming your light to make others comfortable in their own darkness. You have learned, through fire, through pain, through every betrayal that tried to break you, that the only way to truly survive in this world is to unapologetically take up space, to own your voice, to demand what you deserve, not with desperation, but with the unwavering knowledge that you are worthy of it. So let them call you crazy. Let them roll their eyes. Let them scoff. Let them pretend they don't understand the version of you that stands tall, speaks boldly, and refuses to be anything less than whole. Because at the end of the day, their discomfort is not your problem. Your only job? To keep rising, keep glowing, keep walking like you own the ground beneath your feet, because you do. Keep setting the bar higher, keep shedding the dead weight, keep proving, day by day, step by step, that you are not just surviving, you are thriving. And that is the kind of power that doesn't just shift the narrative, it rewrites the whole damn story. Flips the script and burns the old manuscript where you were cast as the quiet, agreeable side character in everyone else's drama. No more. That chapter is closed, locked away, and tossed into the wind like ashes from a fire you no longer tend. Now, you are the author. You decide who gets a role in your life, who deserves a front row seat, and who is better left as a passing mention in the footnotes of your journey. You dictate the tone, the pace, the theme, no longer waiting for permission to take center stage in your own existence, because that's what this is, an existence. Not just a mere survival, a life, not just a collection of moments spent pleasing people who never once asked if you were happy while you were busy making sure they were. And here's the irony, the moment you start writing your story your way, the people who once dismissed you, overlooked you, underestimated you, they start paying attention, not because they suddenly appreciate your worth, but because they can no longer benefit from your ignorance of it. See, when you finally step into your power, when you stop explaining yourself, stop shrinking, stop making yourself more digestible for people who never planned to feed you in return, they panic. They panic because they were comfortable with you being unaware of your own light. They panic because they built entire dynamics around your compliance. They panic because the version of you that required their approval no longer exists. But that's not your concern. You are done explaining, done proving, done bending over backward for people who wouldn't even lean forward for you. Done justifying decisions that protect your peace. Done handing out second, third, and fourth chances like they're participation trophies for bad behavior. You are done waiting for closure that will never come. Because here's the truth, no one likes to admit. Some people will never admit they were wrong. Some people will never take accountability for what they did, how they treated you, how they drained you, how they manipulated your kindness into a weakness they could exploit. And you don't need them to. You don't need the apology that may never come. the closure they refuse to give, the validation they withhold like a prize for your compliance. Because real closure, it isn't found in their regret, it's found in your decision to move forward anyway. So move boldly, move without hesitation, without guilt, without looking over your shoulder to see who's watching, who's whispering, who's wishing they could still control the way you walk. Move like someone who knows their worth, who doesn't beg to be valued, who doesn't wait for permission to take up space. Because the moment you realize you never needed their approval to be great, you become unstoppable. And the ones who truly belong in your life, they won't be threatened by your strength. They won't shrink from your power. They won't resent you for standing taller, speaking louder, demanding more. They'll celebrate it, because real ones don't fear your growth. They grow with you. And the rest, they can stay behind, trapped in the versions of you they were comfortable with, forever wondering what happened to the person they used to control. Meanwhile, you'll be too busy building, rising, thriving to even notice. Because while they sit there, clutching onto their outdated perceptions of you like old tattered photographs, you're out here living in full color. While they replay the past, hoping you'll shrink back into the version of yourself they once knew, the version that bent, that yielded, that tolerated what should have never been tolerated. You're too busy creating a future where that person no longer exists. And that's the kind of growth they never saw coming. Because let's be real, people love to claim they want you to be strong until your strength inconveniences them. They say they admire confidence until your confidence means you no longer seek their approval. They say they respect honesty until your honesty holds up a mirror they aren't ready to face. But their discomfort is not your burden. You are not here to soften yourself for people who refuse to grow. You are not here to dim your light so others don't feel overshadowed. You are not responsible for making people comfortable with the new unstoppable force you've become. So let them struggle with it. Let them sit in their confusion, in their frustration, in their sudden inability to predict your every move. Let them watch from the sidelines as you step fully into the person you were always meant to be. Because that's the thing about people who've been underestimated for too long. They don't just rise, they soar. And when they do, the world has no choice but to pay attention. Not because you need their recognition, not because you crave validation, but because true power, the kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and refusing to apologize for it, is impossible to ignore. And the ones who still try, the ones who pretend they don't see the transformation, who act as if you haven't outgrown every single limitation they once placed on you, let them. Because while they're stuck in denial, trying to convince themselves that you're still the person they could manipulate, the person they could guilt into staying small, you're already 10 steps ahead, building a life so full, so rich, so undeniably yours that their opinions don't even register as background noise. Because here's the thing about thriving, you don't have time to look back. You don't have time to entertain the whispers, the side comments, the "I liked you better before" remarks from people who only valued you when you were easy to control. You don't have time to explain, to defend, to convince people who never planned to understand you anyway. You are too busy winning in ways they never imagined, winning in ways that have nothing to do with their approval, their validation, their small-minded expectations, winning in ways that aren't just about proving them wrong, but about proving yourself right. Because deep down, you always knew. You always knew you were meant for more. You always knew you weren't put on this earth to play small, to settle, to keep making yourself comfortable in spaces that suffocated you. You always knew that one day you'd break free. And now that you have, there's no going back. So let them call you whatever they need to in order to make sense of it. Let them rewrite history, twist the narrative, paint you as the villain in their self-serving stories. Let them throw their little tantrums, stomp their feet, cry about how you've changed. Because you have. And that's exactly the point. You weren't put on this earth to be stagnant, to be a supporting character in someone else's mediocre script, to live the same cycle of sacrifice and silence on repeat. Growth isn't just a privilege, it's a necessity. Evolution isn't just an option, it's survival. And if that makes them uncomfortable, if that makes them lash out, sulk, spin stories where you're the villain simply because you refuse to stay in the role they assigned you, let them. because their resistance to your growth is not your responsibility. Their nostalgia for the version of you that tolerated their nonsense is not your concern. Their inability to adjust to the fact that you will no longer accept less than you deserve is their problem to deal with, not yours. You are done explaining yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. Done handing out forgiveness like party favors to those who only show up when they need something. Done carrying relationships that should have been buried a long time ago. You are done giving CPR to dead connections, trying to resuscitate friendships and relationships that only drained you while doing nothing to sustain you. Because here's the thing, they knew what they were doing. They knew they were taking advantage of your kindness. They knew they were asking too much while giving too little. They knew they were pushing boundaries, testing limits, seeing how far they could go before you finally snapped. And then when you did, when you finally put yourself first, finally said enough, finally stood your ground, suddenly you're the problem. Suddenly you're too much. Suddenly you're not the same person anymore. Of course you're not. You've upgraded, you've elevated, you've shed the layers of self-sacrifice that kept you trapped in dynamics where you were over-giving, over-explaining, over-compromising, while they sat there taking and taking, never once thinking about what you needed. And now that you've broken free, now that you've stepped fully into your power, your confidence, your undeniable worth, they don't know what to do with you. Because they liked you better when you were easier to manipulate. They liked you better when you bit your tongue, made yourself small, put their needs before your own. They liked you better when you were an option, not a priority, not even to yourself. But those days are over. You are done asking for space in rooms that were never built to hold you. Done watering gardens that never bloomed for you. Done setting yourself on fire to keep people warm who wouldn't even hand you a match when you were freezing. Because now you are unstoppable. Now you walk like someone who has nothing to prove but everything to be. Now you move like someone who knows their worth, someone who doesn't beg, someone who doesn't chase, someone who doesn't entertain energy that doesn't match their own. Now you are living for you. And if that makes them uncomfortable, if that makes them bitter, resentful, full of passive-aggressive comments and revisionist history, let them be. Because their reaction to your growth has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their inability to keep up. You are not here to be stagnant so they can feel secure. You are not here to dim your light so they don't feel overshadowed. You are not here to play a role in their script when you've outgrown the whole damn production. You are here to rise, to grow, to evolve into the highest, most powerful, most unapologetic version of yourself. And that is something they will just have to accept or be left behind. And if they choose to be left behind, if they choose to stay stuck in their comfort zones, clinging to the past, unwilling to rise alongside you, so be it. Because the truth is, not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Not everyone is capable of growing with you, of matching your energy, of evolving at the pace your soul demands. Some people were only ever meant to be temporary, a chapter, a lesson, a stepping stone to something greater. And that's okay, because your path is yours alone, and you are no longer afraid to walk it, boldly, fearlessly, without hesitation. No longer afraid of outgrowing spaces that were too small for you. No longer afraid of being too much for people who were never enough for you. No longer afraid of losing people who were never truly invested in your growth to begin with, because you are no longer in the business of convincing people to see your worth. You know your worth. You wear it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you speak, in the way you refuse to settle for anything less than what sets your soul on fire. And that fire, it no longer exists to warm people who don't appreciate it. That fire is for you, to fuel your dreams, to light your path, to keep you moving forward, even when the road gets lonely, even when people fall away, even when doubt creeps in and whispers that maybe you should shrink again, just to make things easier, just to keep the peace. But you won't, because you've tasted the freedom that comes with owning your power, and you will never go back to the cage they tried to keep you in. You will keep rising, keep evolving, keep showing up for yourself in ways you once only dreamed of. And the right people, the ones who truly belong in your life, they won't ask you to shrink. They won't guilt you for growing. They won't make you feel like your strength is something to apologize for. They will celebrate you, support you, rise with you, because those are the people who matter. Those are the ones who deserve a seat at your table, a place in your story, a front row view of the unstoppable force you've become. And as for the rest, let them watch, let them wonder, let them regret ever thinking they could keep you small. Because you're just getting started. And the best part, you don't need anyone's permission to keep going.